Hey guys, and welcome back to XO Medical Spa with another episode here on YouTube. And today I want to talk about something we've talked about prior, which is looking unnatural, changing the way you look, or just looking quote unquote fake. So check the card in the description for the previous episode where I've talked about it a lot of times in regards to just looking fake and looking unnatural. But today what I want to do is talk about how can we mitigate that? How do we lessen the chance of changing the way ourselves look too much, or at what point do you feel like you've done way too much? So let's talk about those things when we come back. When anyone first steps into the world of aesthetics, botox, fillers, threads, lasers, commonly I get is, I don't want to look fake, I don't want to look unnatural. So the conversation often starts with, can fillers do that to me? Can botox do that to me? Or are the steps that I'm taking as a client, at what point, or even if I just start from the beginning, will I start looking unnatural? And I'm always trying to find the best way to answer that question for you, where I answer it for you without giving you too much of a fear factor. One of the common things I say is, you are many syringes away of filler before you start looking unnatural. You're many years away from Botox, or depending on how I do Botox, from looking unnatural. PDO threads, almost impossible to make you look unnatural. Lasers, typically just taking away damage and aging that age has done to you. So the two common things that people address with looking unnatural is typically Botox and fillers. So we'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about PDO threads in regards to how I as a provider can help you make yourself feel more comfortable, and then you as a client, what things can you do to mitigate or decrease the chances of you looking fake. We'll start with the basic part. It's Botox. Can Botox make you look fake? Can Botox make you look unnatural? Or what is the compromise in regards to getting rid of wrinkles, longevity, but then at the same time also keeping your natural emotion? With Botox, which click on the card in the description, we've talked about what Botox is and how we can use it in different places. But Botox is just a medication. It's dose dependent and how I administer them. Meaning that depending on the place that we put it, frown, forehead, crow's feet, and a couple other places, it's how much dosing do I put into you? The higher the dose I go, the longer it lasts, but in the beginning, if it's a very high dose, can you as a patient tolerate that? Meaning that, let's just take the frown for example. You wanna get rid of the wrinkle, I have to give you a very high dose if I want it to last, and I wanna minimize the emotion. Because every time you emote, you make the line. So if you're unable to squeeze in and emote over the next 3 months, your body will fix those lines. Right here, you can keep it pretty natural, because here, if I freeze you, you just can't get mad at people. Here, if I freeze you, you don't make these wrinkles, which I don't necessarily want to freeze here, because showing a couple lines, especially now that we wear a lot of masks, shows that we're smiling. It's this guy up here that will typically make someone fake, or make someone look unnatural. Because if you freeze this area, this muscle, this forehead muscle, is the only thing that lifts your eyebrows. Now you're trying to get rid of the wrinkles, but if I paralyze your ability to lift your eyebrows, one, you'll walk around with very droopy, heavy lids, which most of us don't like. Or two, if I dose it wrong, meaning that I inject it wrong, and not necessarily is wrong, because we can always address this and we can fix this. But that spot guy look, where people are always worried about that spot guy. That spot guy happens just due to injection method. We may not be able to get all that muscle in that first sitting, so you come back and we readdress it for you. But with that forehead, with Botox, depending on if I go very high, get rid of all your wrinkles, but your eyebrows feel heavy. Or two, if I just don't inject it appropriately, not wrong, but appropriately for you as a specific client, then you get that spot guy, no problem, you come back. So depending on Botox, where we place it, dosing, and how we place it will determine whether you look natural or unnatural. With fillers, you can look unnatural or fake in two ways. If we go back to Botox, we talked about dosing and placement. So with fillers, dosing, meaning how many fillers do I put into a certain place, and how I place it, where do I place it. So let's talk about the first one, where people come in for lips, And we'll use it as a great example because people always have that fear of looking duckiness, overdone, and things like that. No matter what filler I use, it's very hard for me to make you look fake with one filler. Now, if I think you need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fillers, I always start you with one. Subsequent follow-up treatments, I always only put one. For 2 reasons. One, if I put a lot at any one time, your lips will overpower that filler and likely your filler will just get pushed out of there. So that's a good transition. Over time, as long as you keep putting fillers in, fillers in, and fillers in, with a very highly mobile area, what happens is that filler can migrate, and you'll see it. Filler that used to be in your lips start working its way up here, then you get a ridging effect, then it works its way up here, and then your lips start looking unnatural. So dosing means if I put a lot of fillers in, you're gonna look unnatural. I put a lot of fillers in at once, it can move, and over time, if we put a lot of fillers in, you may forget what you naturally look like, and you start chasing this big lip, you start chasing again. But it depends on your provider, and your provider will tell you, no, I think your lips are way too big. Or, hey, we've been doing this for years, your filler's starting to migrate, so why don't we dissolve it and start back over? We've talked about dosing, too much product in too little of an area. Next up is how I inject it. Every injector injects it a different way. We use cannulas, we use needle, we use fanning, we use tenting. There's many ways to inject a product into someone's face, such as the lips. If your lips naturally occur a certain way, and you're trying to change it, you're trying to follow a certain trend, then by trying to manipulate that lip way too much with filler, you're going outside the boundaries of what you naturally look like. So my conversation with you is, what are you actually trying to achieve with your lips? My client this morning, her upper lip is significantly smaller than her lower lip. So her goal was, hey, can we just catch up my upper lip so I don't have as much of a gummy smile, and at rest, my upper lip matches my lower lip. Fantastic. But if we didn't have that conversation, and I just injected the lips the way I inject everyone else's lips, and I'm like, oh, hey, this is the latest trend. I'm just gonna give you giant voluminous lips, outline the borders, and give you a giant Cupid's bow. That may be not what she's looking for. Another patient who comes in, I think we should just do a natural lip. She's like, no. I really want to accentuate everything that I have. In this case, again, if I'm not injecting it the way she wants it or he wants it, and I'm not following their goals and guidelines, then this is how you can look unnatural. Not necessarily fake, but is going outside of what you look naturally. Now the fake part is usually by overdoing it, over accentuating something, putting in way too much product, building out something that's not necessarily you, and then over years and years and years, your lips just get way too big, out of proportion from what your natural shape is and what your ratio should be. Now the last part of looking fake and unnatural is you not necessarily knowing what you need. It's medicine, it's beauty. You may be a lawyer, you may be something outside of the beauty realm, you may be a dentist, whatever the case is. So what you may know as beauty or aesthetics may not necessarily mean what you need. A common place that we inject is the smile lines. And almost 99% of the time when someone comes in and they say, hey, can you fix this smile line for me? I won't even touch that area. Because we talked about this, the aging process in the future, or in past videos, is the aging process is loss of volume, bone, fat, muscle, and collagen. So everything starts to fall and descend. As a patient, this is the problem that you see. As the patient, this is what you want to correct. As a clinician, as a provider, I want to fix the problem and not necessarily what you see. So the problem is all of this. I want to lift all this skin off the front of your face. Good, we've come to an agreement. Now, over time, if we come to that agreement, you're like, okay, let's lift you more, let's lift you more, let's lift you more. Great, but if I inject way too much to try to fix this thing, what happens to the accompanying areas? Your cheeks aren't a standalone place. They are connected to your temples. They are connected to your preauricular. They are connected to your submalar. They are connected to how your face naturally looks. So if your face doesn't support a bunch of cheeks, or we've blown out your cheeks so much to this extent where now your temples look hollow and your preauricular looks hollow. And that's how we start looking fake and unnatural, because we're trying to fix this one thing, but how does everything else look in proportion around it? If we go back to the lips, you want bigger and bigger and bigger lips. So eventually your lips start projecting out. When I talk about lips or anything else, I want to talk about natural ratios and what natural beauty is. And when I mean natural, I just don't mean in a natural state looking natural, but there are certain ratios and certain beauty lines that we have to follow. However, they're based on sex, ethnicity, trends, and things like that. So all these rules that I'm mentioning aren't set in stone. It's just something I want you to consider. So if we look at our profile, or if we look at our cheek profile, if I keep blowing out the cheeks and they look like this, look what happens to your profile. It is no longer an aesthetically pleasing ratio. Take your lips, for example. If you keep pushing out your lips, we have this imaginary aesthetic line, and you can do this at home. Take your finger, take a pencil, take a chopstick, whatever the case is, put it against your nose, put it against your bottom lip, put it against your chin. And all 3 points should roughly touch that pencil or your finger. If your chin is way back, if your lips are way back, or your lips are way forward, and it's pushing out that aesthetic line, that's something else to consider. So we have these ratios, we have these numbers, we have these aesthetic lines that we follow general guidelines, but as we just talked about, we can change those, but we have to make everything fall in line together. For females, you guys want to achieve that upside down triangle, that V shape of youth. But imagine if you're already V-shaped and you want to keep blowing out your cheeks, your upper face is going to get wide, 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 wide. To what extent? Because you want to lift this. Maybe you have very, very big cheeks, but your chin is really recessed. Granted, we're going to project and push out your chin, but to what extent? We have to make sure it follows that AE line, that rickets line that touches your nose, your lower lip to your chin. So those are a couple things that we have to consider. Yes, we want to fix certain things. Yes, you may want lips. Yes, you may want cheeks. But what does everything else look like around it? That is another recap on how to keep yourself looking natural, or prevention or mitigating on how to look fake. We've talked about dosing, Botox dosing, how much I use, filler dosing, how much I place into a certain area, how I place it, where am I putting the Botox to keep it look natural, how am I placing the filler to make it look natural, am I tinting your lips, am I cannulating your lips, where am I placing that cheek filler? And lastly, yes, I'm trying to fix the problem. Yes, I'm putting fillers into a certain area, but how does that correlate to the rest of my face? If I have a very round face, yes, I can give you cheeks to a certain extent, but if I try to triangulate that filler way too much to give you that V shape, you're gonna have an overly done face. Or if I blow out your chin, if I blow out your lips, yes, we can give you more filler in those areas, but how does everything else look like that around it? So again, if you guys enjoyed these videos, make sure you give it a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe, and also make sure you share it to other people, because everyone, much like ourselves, we have the same questions, but we don't necessarily know how to ask it, or we don't ask it until we get into the office. So these are what these videos are really meant for. I'll see you guys later on the next episode. Bye.